A big welcome to everybody who's joining in and who has already joined. So we are here to find out today about whether the GRE at home testing is actually an advantage or not. So to start off with, the GRE general test is actually used by universities in their admissions decision-making process. And these scores help the institutions identify if the applicants, that is you, are academically prepared for a graduate level study. And for the students, the test gives the opportunity to stand out amongst the thousands of applicants who are pouring in every single application time. When the pandemic hit, there was a heavy shift in the dynamics, especially with the introduction of home testing. The students now have an option of taking the at-home testing and testing at the center. Now, the scale continues to tip in different directions when it comes to the home testing. And our experts, Suniti Soni and Shilpi Talwar, are here today to give you the clarity about making the right choices for your brightest futures. Now, talking about Shilpi, she is one of our seasoned study abroad admissions expert with over 8 years of experience. She has passionately facilitated the journeys of thousands of students to the universities of their choice. As an advisor who religiously believes in simplifying the process and handholding the students throughout all the twists and turns of their decision-making, she is in fact one of our most coveted experts with a proven track record of sending students to some of the top-ranked universities in US, UK, Canada, and Europe. A big welcome to you, Shilpi.
Thank you so much, Seema. I'm glad to be here today. Thank you.
Great having you on board. Inspiring and meticulous in understanding of education, skill development, and study abroad industry. An outstanding academician and a brilliant business leader with over 2 decades of experience, Suniti is known for her prowess in process formation, design, and change management aligned to academic deliverables of standardized tests. A big welcome to you also, Suniti.
Hi, Seema. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So let's get this kick started. My first question is to you, Suniti. So how was the GRE at home testing conceived, and are there any major differences from the testing at center?
Okay, so let me begin as to when this was conceived. And in the year 2019, the well-known story of the COVID began across the globe. While a lot of us perceived that it would definitely not impact the India per se, but in March of 2020, the GRE home testing began in a lot of other countries, beginning with the US, Canada, France, Germany, and Italy. And I think it's quite known to all that these countries were the first ones to begin their lockdown process. And this gradually transitioned into India post March and April of 2020. And it was actually while these universities had to close in their application processes and your test centers also shut down, we had close to 66,000 GRE test takers for the year of 2020 and 21, and which means a lot of the students opted for GRE home testing in the Indian market. And this number grew to close to 1,14,000 in the year of 21 and 22. So wow. This definitely was a welcome measure to most of the students in India. So this is how it was conceived. And moving on to how different is this test, or was this test? It is exactly identical in terms of the structure when compared to what it is if you take the test at the test center. But the other compliances in terms of the proctor, you will have a human proctor, and it's just not about proctoring. So there are a lot of compliances that you'll have to ensure are met before you even decide to register for the home testing for the GRE. While it seems, when you talk about it, it does seem to be quite a simple process. But as you dive deeper into the equipment requirements or the testing requirements, etc., there are a lot of points that definitely students have to keep in mind before they decide to register for the GRE home testing. So when you move on to the equipment requirements, you will not be allowed to use your mobile devices or your Chromebooks. You're only allowed to use a desktop or a laptop. And your OS has to be licensed, and there are very specific browsers that you will have to use. You cannot have dual monitors, and you can't use your headphones or earphones. You only have to use an internal or an external speaker through which you have to communicate with the human proctor. So as you progress through the test, there are a lot of interventions. You have to ensure your room is soundproof, and any sound that the proctor gets to hear external will raise a lot of questions in terms of the credibility of how you're taking the test. And so if they keep hearing this multiple times, they may issue a warning. So these are all the equipment requirements that have to be met, and students need to clearly understand whether they'll be able to cater to all these requirements before they register for the home testing. Now, is it just restricted to equipments, etc.? No, it just doesn't end with that. They in fact get into a lot of detailing as to how you sit, what you wear, and the kind of movements you make when you're taking the home testing, because you're sitting in your comfortable zone. But at the same time, considering the integrity of the test that has to be maintained, there are a lot of other factors which they also look into. So you need to sit in a room, place yourself in a position, or how you are, the human proctor is able to see you on the day of the test. They are even, see, as it's mentioned here, your ears should not be covered. So we go in for these photographs, right? So they know that there's something to do with the ear. So these aspects, and then you cannot be overly using your accessories that are going to disturb you when you're test taking, because all these could be indications that you're not taking the test that the way it has to be taken. The most biggest impact on the GRE home testing is when you move into a center, you will have a scratch paper where you can make notes as you're browsing through the questions online. So that helps a lot when the students are working out the questions. But the challenge here is you will not be allowed to use any material at your desk. You will have to use the whiteboard and the marker that is available online. And as you keep, obviously, this is going to be, you'll have to show the proctor, and then you'll have to erase it once you've completed it and before you log out. So these are all very small but important points that are applicable for the GRE home testing, and extremely important when students are deciding to register for the test. Okay, so these are the main requirements as such.
Right. So, from the numbers that you've mentioned, I mean, they are really phenomenal if you really look at it. People who are actually taking the home testing, it looks like that was really advantageous for many people. So, during that period, what kind of problems do you think it solved for the students? How did it solve those, let's say, pandemic shutdown for the students? And how was it really welcomed across India?
Right. So if you look at the timelines, this is exactly closer to your fall intake of 2020. Right. So that particular timeline, the students also, a lot of the students, maybe other timelines as well, had decided to take the GRE, right? Considering that is one of the key factors into their admission process. But a quick transition into the GRE home testing, it gave the students a lot of flexibility. So when you compare it with taking the test at the center, these students could book their tests 24 hours prior to their test date that they wanted to, and this booking was open through the day. And they have the option of booking their tests depending on the time slot that they wanted it to be done.
Mhm.
And a sudden shutdown, uncertainty also left a lot of students wondering, or it's a very difficult decision to be made in terms of their future, career goals, prospects, etc. So this actually made things easy. The third most important point is we all are also aware that for a very long period, your universities and the colleges were also shut.
Right.
So a lot of students this became an advantage for them to prepare and also make use of this opportunity to take up the test. And with the score validity being 5 years, it was actually the right decision to be taken at the right time. So let's make use of this opportunity and jump in to take the home testing, because obviously once everything opens up, it's going to be a rush into the academic curriculum, etc. So
Correct.
this helped a lot in terms of how students remained on track and probably their future career goals. And one part of it was set. They had time to prepare and they might as well take it at home. And it was more in their own environment. So these were a lot of challenges that were solved for the students, more specifically in India, which is why you see those increase in numbers also.
Correct. You know, there were a lot of specifications you mentioned with respect to the home testing. But the way I see it, the home testing actually leaves a lot of gray areas where, in spite of these things, that we've talked about, like what we wear, how we sit, people can take advantage of that, literally advantage as we say it. But how does ETS counter these measures?
Right. So as is always, new technology definitely brings in new ways of cheating, right?
Correct.
So to be more specific, one of the negative aspects of technology in education and specifically in assessments is the potential to encourage cheating and students attempting or trying to get into these fraudulent acts is one of the negative aspects of technology. But this is not something that is unique only to the ETS, and it is not that ETS is not aware of such things. They have been working on this for the last 6 decades, and maybe initially their investment in terms of the security aspect of the GRE at the test centers was restricted only to the administration at the test centers. But once this began, they had to further invest in infrastructure and as well as people. So ETS has always had an Office of Testing Integrity, which is called OTI, which specifically looks into all these aspects of cheating, not only on GRE as a standardized test, but there are other tests as well, where it's understood that any new technology comes in. Rather surprising, we realize that within days of this, any new technology coming in, you already have another process to bypass it and get things done your way. So this is just not applicable only to this kind of a setup, it's across. And for the makers of the test, you have to be quite sure that as they build it, they will also be building and further upgrading and working on all this to keep fixing them. So no system is going to be 100% to the T. So you will have those cracks that become visible, but as they become visible, the test makers are going to fix them by and large. So you're always going to have your hunter behind your back, hawk-eyed. So this has to remove a lot of assumptions that it's an easy, there are things happening and maybe I can get away with it. So always be sure that your hunter may make a few mistakes, but once he identifies his gaps, you yourself ensure that he's hawk-eyed and they know where to focus. So these are various ways and means of which they ensure that the test is secure.
So, from the start, I've understood that the home testing is easy to take. There's not a lot of difference between the at center testing. In fact, it could even be better. There's a lot more focus, and it's a quieter environment, and it just looks almost near perfect, just the perfect miracle that everybody wanted in their tough time.
Seema, it is definitely a miracle, all right. And with this miracle, I would actually want to add that this was a miracle that came with a lot of blessings, disguised in different forms. Okay. So let me tell you the blessings that the student had in different forms. And as the home testing progressed, just to clarify, Seema, are you able to hear me?
I can hear you. Shilpi, are we both?
Yes.
Okay.
You both are perfectly audible.
Right. I think there was a participant who said the voice is breaking. Okay.
Yeah,
so now the blessings began to come in different forms. Okay. So what were these blessings and how did this miracle work in favor of the students? So these blessings came in the form of consultants and they came in the form of ghostwriters. And then you have network of student aspirants who attempted the GRE home testing. And what did these, the way in which these blessings in disguise happened to do? So this home testing now kind of became, this miracle helped people define a new business vertical, which by 2021 was generating a business of close to 30 crores. And
wow,
your GRE test probably works out to be somewhere close to 20K or 20 to 25K. But then the miracle and the blessings for students, their charges varied anywhere from 40,000 to even close to 90K. Now, we will have to actually slowly transition into this fairy that came up from ETS in the form of home testing, and the miracle and the blessing began taking a different direction. And aspirants who probably decided to take the shorter path towards achieving their long-term goal decided to use the blessings in disguise and then opened up the can of worms, where we began to see the home testing scam that began to open up in 2021. So you had trainers and mentors who were experts in training and delivering for the GRE were offered X amount to take the test for the students through the home testing. And you have consultants probably who would guarantee an admission in respective universities, who were ready. They used the kind of technology to bypass the GRE home testing, and this scam opened up. And it was more prevalent or rampant in Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, more into your Guntur, Vijayawada sites. And references from students. So a friend takes it and probably he was not a candidate who was able to get a 350, 320 or 330 plus. So attempted the GRE scam through the fraudulent means and got a very high score. So you refer. So this seemed to be a pseudo blessing that students began to see, and it just became rampant. While we have heard a lot about this coming in from Andhra Pradesh, I would not be able to say whether it did not happen in the other states, but a lot of students have received a lot of communication or phone calls from people asking them to use this means to take up the test. And but there have been a lot of students who have got back to us and communicated that the home testing was very stringent. But on records and as escalated to the government of India by Manya Education as well in 2021, in terms of recordings, students who have communicated this particular a well-oiled mechanism of the GRE home testing scam, and the effort has also been taken to escalate this to ETS. So I'm not sure, while it began as a miracle and it definitely became a blessing for a few of the students, but there's a lot more that has to be looked into in terms of the GRE home testing. Whether it really is a miracle or is it a blessing?
But I think everyone was winning in this situation. I mean, the people who wanted money were getting money out of it. The students who were wanting scores and high scores were getting high scores out of it. Universities were getting quality students out of it. So I think it was a win-win situation for everybody. And considering that GRE is valid for 5 years, and students who had very long-term plans to be in the US or any other country, they would have all used this course to get a PhD program later and get a lot of funding from the university to study and get a stipend. Sometimes few organizations in USA definitely ask for your GRE scores while the time they hire you. So
Okay.
I think it was a very win-win situation for everybody, and everybody was getting piece of the cake they wanted to. So don't you think? I feel life was set for everybody.
Life may be definitely set. I mean, definitely not in the right way. I mean, isn't that wrong? Like, are you saying that, there were no repercussions for all of these misdeeds, I would say? And isn't it unfair to the students who are actually taking the test honestly? I mean, even they could have false positives. Or they might end up losing out on good offers because somebody else did not actually make the right choice. Will this not come back and bite back at some point?
So now, right. So while this began, and some of the students did find an easy way to get in and get their scores, what began post this is definitely this was brought to the notice of ETS, and once they began tightening their measures, we began to see students have reported they've got their scores, probably they're sent in their application, but then there goes a bang and they receive an email or a communication saying their test scores were cancelled, or this is specifically only to the home testing. Now, either these tests were put on hold, the scores, they've attempted it. So students were not able to, they had to wait because they had application timelines and deadlines. And obviously, post-COVID, there was a surge in the number of applications going into the universities. There's a lot of investment that the candidates have made, both for the ones who have done it ethically as well as the ones who have used fraudulent measures. So you have already spent close to 1 lakh and getting somebody else to take the test for you, and then you realize your score is on hold or your score is cancelled. Now, would you even get back to them? Would they even let you know that the reasons for this, why they have held on to your score or cancelled your score? It's unlikely that you will get the response in the timeline that you want to. So this builds up a lot of issues. Now, it's just not before the test scores were released, but some of them post getting in their scores at 12, they receive an update after X days or a month saying their scores are cancelled. So once the scores are cancelled after release, which means again, you have overshot your timelines to apply to universities. And if ETS confirmed, see, there were different scenarios. So for those of the students where the scores were cancelled after release, ETS gave them another chance to take up the test.
Okay.
But by no way are they going to give you back your money that you have paid for the test registration. You'll have to invest again.
Correct.
For those who, depending on the extent to which they found that the students did not adhere to the test taking process or the protocol, they were banned for a particular specific period, say about a year or two. But there have been instances where there was a lifetime ban. So which means you can never take the GRE again. And this impacted a lot of applications, and this came as a surprise. So obviously these students who actually moved into these fraudulent methods of taking the test, the person who has already taken the money from you to get your test done is not going to give it back to you, right?
Yeah.
And so you have lost both in terms of the money that you have paid and in terms of your career and your long-term goals. So it did impact a lot of students who took the test ethically, which was one thing that definitely had to be looked into. So these were the various ways in which, but it could be delayed. But even if this measure was delayed by ETS, probably this was one way in which the students also had to be taught a lesson for the wrong ways in which they had to take the test. So it was a shocker or a surprise for a lot of people once this.
Right.
So
Right.
this was the impact of the fraudulent actions.
Also, adding to what Sunidhi is saying, there were places wherein ETS has come up, and they have used very credible sources to put out this information that they are going to take necessary steps required, like this information given by Lijo Sam Omen, who's the ETS director. This was article in Economic Times, which is one of the legitimate newspapers in India. They said that if we look out at three major points, they said that they are going to cancel the scores. They are going to notify the institutions if we have taken the test unethically. And then there are, if done time and again, they are going to ban you from the testing center, or from ban you lifetime from taking the test, as Sunidhi mentioned. Or you can lose your test fee also. I mean, it's upon them if they want to give you another chance about it. But then you can consider that your dream of going abroad could be put on hold because of you just took a shortcut of opting for some particular exam wherein you didn't want to do the study and everything and do it legitimately. So this is something we are putting out there, and it's not that we are saying, it is the ETS is also themselves coming forward and putting this information out in the public to understand.
And they're clearly stating that as well, isn't it? That they will tell the universities.
Yes, they are going to tell the universities, they will notify the institutions, they will cancel your scores, and they'll tell the universities. So even if you take the exam again and you do it legitimately, the university still would know that you cheated or you were being unethical in the last exam duration. This is another article by ETS themselves. It was the press release by them that in the year fall 2021, there were an increase of 200% score cancellations as compared to financial year 2020, which means this was the timeline which we spoke about initially, that this was the timeline that GRE at home was introduced. And obviously, they took their time, they did their applications and everything. Later, when they were doing all the security checks and everything for the examinations, there was an increase of 200%, which is a very big number we are talking about. It's a very huge number.
Right. So, Shilpi, my question to you is, you are the expert with respect to admissions. What are the universities doing about it? I mean, are they taking measures?
Yes, definitely. Universities are taking measures about it. Let's just assume that you've got the score. Let's say you've got a 320, you've got a 323, and you have gone to a counselor, you've gone to anybody, and you've started your applications. First things first, if the university comes to know of it, or if not, see, universities know this is something which has been happening. So even if you do it right now, universities know that you might be one of those odd students who have not taken the official means to take the test. They will either put your application on hold and not review it at all. They're not going to reply back to you. You would be under the assumption that my application is with the university, but in real, the universities actually have kept the application on a different folder, and they're not going to look at it or get back to you ever. Or, I mean, they can reject it directly. Whatever would be the best way, they would take it as is. as applications can get rejected, wherein a student who has made an application with 60% in his bachelor's and has a 330 in a GRE, any person with a little bit of sense would know that this is something which is a little fishy. It is not matching up. The student has X number of backlogs. The student does not have a very high percentage. There's something wrong, and they are going to reject your application. They're not going to give you the reason for that. You would never know, but this could be one of your reasons. Universities will ask, another aspect of putting your application on hold would be that the university can mail you or notify you in a day or two or in some duration to give them the in-center scores. They will put it on hold and they'll ask you to please give us your in-center scores, and your application will be on hold till the time you give it to them, because it is not about just uploading your mark sheet of the result sheet of your GRE in your exams. You have to electronically report your scores to the universities as well, and then that's where they come to know about whether it's fine or not fine.
Shilpi, just throwing your question there. In your experience, have you seen such situations where universities have done that?
Yes, I would come to that as well. I had a student who, applied to one of the universities we are going to talk about later. Went through the GRE score, went through the visa, got there, was studying there. 8 months later, he gets an email from ETS saying that your score has been cancelled. And the ETS informed the university as well. Mind you, the student was studying there and was way through his first year of the program. So and the university deported him back. So when we are saying that don't do it and you think that you're going to get away with it, you are never going to. Probably that thing would take like a year or 8 months, probably 1.5 years. You could be attending your convocation in 2 weeks and then you will get a notification from ETS saying, please, hello, come back. So this is not what is going to be. Definitely, you will have to, look for legitimate reasons to give your examination. As mentioned previously, ETS is also going to make sure that you've cheated on the exam. So they are going out of their way. They are going to take every measure possible to inform every single body that you've cheated on the exam. So they're not going to cancel your score. They're going to tell them that we have cancelled it. And then they're going to tell them they've cheated. They're going to ban you. They're going to take your fees. So they are going to be very stringent about it.
So Satvik on chat has asked this question, ma'am, are universities accepting GRE home testing? I think it's perfect for what we are moving ahead with.
Yeah. So as I said, the university I was talking about was Arizona State University. Arizona State University was one of the few ones who came up initially and addressed this issue that they are not going to accept any of the applications from the students who apply with the GRE test, which is going to be at home. The university is going to reject your application. The university is going to keep it on hold, or they're going to ask you to submit an in-center score. They're very clear. They are very vocal about it. You can go to the website of the university, check this information. They are not going to accept that. Not just Arizona State for that matter. We have another top-ranked university. So this is University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. This is one of the most top-ranked universities of USA. This is also another Department of Economics of that particular university saying that they only take the regular GRE exam. Home edition is not accepted. I'm sure there are other universities as well doing so. These are the two ones wherein we wanted to highlight that the really good universities are doing so. The average and good ones also. Rest of them are definitely going to join the league, because now ETS has started being vocal about it. I'm sure this practice must have been going on since the time they introduced this examination, but then they don't put out that information out in the public unless they have all the means and the data to back up their claims. They do have it, so they are now, and I'm sure India is the number of test takers in India is huge. It's very huge. So they're not using just very small little media channels. They are using media channels like Economic Times, which is a very strong base in India. So they are using to put out in the public that don't do this. if you do this, there's no going away with this. Definitely.
So, Shilpi, one more question is again from your experience, can you help us understand if there are universities who don't really say this outright, but when you start doing the applications, they mention that, oh, okay, you know what, we don't really want home testing. How about you give us the at center testing?
Yes, definitely. That does happen sometimes. Sometimes it's not even written on the website of the university. What they will just generally write is that we need a GRE examination. Okay, you will be like, yeah, my university does not want it, and you will process an application, and then the university is going to drop you an email saying that we took a look at your application. We found out that you have done a GRE home edition. Hi, please give us a the in-center this thing. But then you have to understand, students study for 1 or 2 months who are actually preparing for the examination. Honestly, they study, they give the examination. So doing it right there and then, it's not possible. And the universities do not give you time. They know that
Yeah,
you have cheated. They know that you have cheated. That's why they're asking for it.
right.
Yeah.
So, what are the things that students should also keep in mind moving forward, or the things that
Yeah.
students who cheat or kind of like don't take it ethically don't keep in mind either?
Yeah. See, what I would recommend, these are the key takeaways I would suggest everybody, that if you think you can get away with this, you are never going to get away with this. We are not in any way saying that everybody is taking the exam unethically, but even for the ones who are taking it ethically, what if the university says, and you apply, you get a really good score at home, and you apply, and the university comes up and says that we do not accept the home edition because of the majority people giving it unethically? It's always better to choose the path which is there. GRE is an examination which is here to stay, it's not going anywhere. So another thing is, even if you've gone through it and your way through your program, you're definitely going to struggle with the curriculum of the university. The way in which we teach in India, our education system is entirely different than what they do over there. So even if you're a student with a 60% or a 55%, you've got into a very good university, you've got a scholarship and everything, you are going to struggle over there. And then, as I mentioned earlier, there have been cases that students have been deported midway. So this is definitely going to be, as Suniti mentioned, they're going to come with a hunter behind you always, and they're going to check on you to do that. So yeah, and this is something, GRE, looking at the admissions point of view, I don't think GRE is something which is going anywhere. It's an exam everybody is going to take. Universities did, keep it optional for some duration of time, but it's definitely going to stay.
Right. I mean, probably that's something that I was going to ask you as well, because a lot of people would probably say that, oh, you know what, why are we even talking about GRE? Because it's optional now. I don't really need to kind of like take it. And I think that's what everybody in the market is also talking about right now. Oh, GRE
Yeah.
is gone optional. You don't have to take these tests. We'll send you to the university
Yeah.
without any of these tests. No IELTS, no GRE, no nothing.
Yeah.
You're going
Yeah.
to go to US.
Yeah, definitely. See, I will not say that the people who are saying this are wrong, but then we have to understand the point of view of that particular university. US is a country which is going to say everything as optional, but then what they want to see is how good you can follow rules. They're going to say it as optional, but it's better you take them, because if you look at their acceptance rate, they're going to accept all the students who have a GRE, and they're going to reject all the students who do not. And then definitely then that's when you realize that I should have taken the exam and put out a strong application. So
Right. Basically,
optional.
sorry. Yeah. I was just saying that. So basically, that means that it gives them that advantage of making sure that, they have a higher chance of getting in. That's what you're saying, right?
Definitely adds another layer to the applicant's profile. if you're putting across an application to the university with just your percentage, with just your CV basics, you're not giving anything to the university to actually evaluate you on. If you are a student with, let's just say, 80%, there would be 4 other applicants with the same percentage. What added
Okay.
another layer of this thing you're giving to the university to evaluate you on, apart from your additions to your SOPs and your LORs? Definitely, GRE is something which needs to be taken ethically, and we would definitely say please take it at center, not at home.
Okay. So coming to my, most important question, what do experts recommend? So I have a student who's kind of like going in exact flow that I am going as well, because
Yeah,
somebody is asking, so ma'am, is it not okay to take home testing? So,
yeah, I read that.
so,
So I was just
so
going to add to some of the points that Shilpi had said. Basis data that we have received, and probably this will help the student with the questions that he has. The percentage of test takers at the center when compared to the test takers at home has increased. I am more specifically talking about the region where the scam was rampant in Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. So at Andhra Pradesh, if we had, this is starting December of 2022, if the percentage of test takers at the test centers stood at 31% before that, from December, it shifted to 65%. So 65% of test takers are now have moved on to taking the GRE at the centers. Second, when you move on to Telangana, while it stood at a 35%, that has seen a huge jump to 56%. So this is, we are seeing a big change in terms of students opting away from the GRE home testing and moving to the center. Right. So I think
right,
what I'm seeing on the screen also is adding to that.
correct. So this is again, I think this was just released on 27th Jan by the head of the VP of EDS GRE. And they are also, the test makers themselves are actually saying that, oh, you know what, we motivate you to actually go for the at center testing. So obviously this is good. I mean, what about you, Shilpi? Like from an admissions perspective, I think it's a very legitimate question that the student has asked. Should we not take the at-home testing, or what exactly are we paying, or what exactly is the vibe?
Yes, I would definitely say move to an home, at center from a home edition. Because even if you, as I mentioned earlier, even if you are going to take a home edition, there are universities which are not accepting. Even we are not saying in any way that the students who are, attending the session here are all the ones who are taking it unethically. But then you have to understand that universities do not promote this. Universities do not want you to sit for that because they don't know what means were taken while you were sitting for that examination. So to remove that barrier and to remove that wall between you and university, because at the end of the day, GRE is an exam which you need to get done with, have a good score. This is another basis of you to study in the university. You have to have good relationship from day one with your university. It needs to be crystal clear. So that relationship building, that trust building should come from you. That day one, you're not portraying anything wrong in your application. So I would say yes, definitely move to an in-center examination. GRE examination is another added layer of strength in your application. Go for it. Definitely do not avoid it. Study hard. And yeah, definitely. I would recommend an in-center examination any day.
Right. I mean, that's a lot of input. Now, from what, from all the conversations that we've had, all the discussions that we've had, one thing that I've understood is that GRE is definitely relevant. It's here to stay. And, by no means should students not consider home testing, because it does offer a lot of benefits, as Suniti actually mentioned. But it's important for the students to actually know, and probably, while they're shortlisting the universities, to kind of like check in whether the universities are really accepting the home testing or not. But from Shilpi, what I understand from an admissions perspective, the safer thing to do would actually be to take it at center. And again, bringing back to the data that you have mentioned, Suniti, is that a lot of people are the lot of students, and probably the entire sphere is moving towards, like, whether we recommend it or not, they're actually moving towards an at center testing, and probably actually people are taking more GRE as well, and it's coming back into focus also as a integral component of the applications. So that's just a matter of time.
Yeah, sorry. So while shortcuts, short-term measures for the supposedly perceived long-term gains are definitely very tempting, I think students have begun to pause before falling in for into the temptation of resorting to these fraudulent acts. So, and I think this also leads to for their false future, right? So I think the choices that they make determine their course of action and their entire future as well. So ideally, students need to believe in themselves, stay away from these acts, and irrespective of whoever you are or whatever you choose to do, you are going to be successful in life. So let not such measures be a bottleneck and just completely ruin your future. So you have to make the right decision and the right choices in the right way. Right. So this is what I would recommend.
So adding on to that, I want to play a small clip by the EDS VP GRE, where he talks about the relevance of GRE as well as the test integration.
We see great growth, not just with the GRE, but with other assessments we are offering. And our office here in India is expanding. We're creating more and more influence and contact with universities, and they are telling us that they see the value of the GRE to promote students to go to different disciplines beyond the traditional ones, and even business schools and others. So very excited to have India as our #1 priority globally. These things happen like in every other industry, but ETS is committed to stopping that. We have in place different requirements that have been aligned with state-of-the-art innovation in test security, like AI, environmental scans, biometrics, all the different things we're doing. This is required a lot of investments by ETS, but we're happy to do it because we want to be fair to those students who have been doing things in the right way. And we want to stop these things happening. So that's an issue that we are not going to let go, and we're working with the universities to cancel those scores for those people who have violated the rules.
So that kind of sums up our entire discussion, and I'd like to thank everybody who's been a part of this webinar, and hope that you have a successful journey throughout your application. And if you want to actually connect back with us, see how interact with an expert, interact with an admissions expert, you can definitely book a free demo on our Manya Group website. You can even connect with the trainers if you want to get a sneak peek into how we actually teach GRE as well. But the end goal is, whatever you do, make sure that you actually do ethically. And a big thank you to you, Suniti and Shilpi, for being a part of this discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Seema. Thanks.
All right. Thank you. Bye, everybody.